Today's Bible passage to read is the Gospel of John, chapter 18, verses 33 to 38. And today, the church remembers Alfred, king and scholar, who died in the year 899. We know a bit about him, although not whether he really burnt the cakes. He was king of Wessex at a time when there was division between Saxons and Danes in the country, and much conflict and struggles. Alfred won a decisive victory to hold back the Danish advance, and he controlled the south and the west and unified the country more than before. As well as a successful military campaigner, he was a good king in peacetime. He started the navy, and he attended to educational and legal matters in an enlightened way. Alfred himself didn't learn to read and write until he was in his 30s. I suppose he was too busy before that. But he encouraged Anglo-Saxon scholarship and himself was thirsty for more and more knowledge. He was a person of deep personal Christian commitment too, and he used to carry around with him all the time a book of psalms and prayers and readings, which he pretty much knew by heart. He endowed monasteries, and he codified the law with an emphasis on its basis in Christian teaching. Alfred is the only British monarch to have been called the Great, and he seems to have deserved it. I can imagine he would have been fascinated by the conversation between Christ and Pontius Pilate, reported in today's reading, because of its dealing with the nature of kingship, authority, and indeed truth. Nothing trivial then, as Jesus stood on the verge of being executed. John the Evangelist draws such a contrast between the two men. The Roman, powerful, with position, military backup, wealth, influence. And the wandering Jewish teacher in chains, facing probable death. Who wins in this conversation? It ought to be obvious. And yet Pilate can't get his head around Jesus and has a feeling that he may be innocent. His last question, what is truth, is left hanging in the air. And I can imagine that's how it was. Because after all, at that point, where would you start? What could Jesus have said that he would have listened to or understood? Or perhaps it wasn't a real question. Perhaps it was a despairing, cynical, throwaway remark. What's truth anyway? Who knows? But of course, for the evangelist, it is a key question for the reader. What is truth? Who is truth? Who is embodying truth now, living it out? True authority, true kingship. And that is our challenge as well. The Romans kept order by throwing their weight around, by having soldiers on every street corner, by taxing heavily, by cruel executions. Jesus' authority? He spoke kindly to people, he helped them. He told little stories about God, and they flocked in crowds to see him. They could not get enough of him. Politicians of today, take note. How ephemeral is political authority, and how acutely we've been reminded of that with recent events. True kingship, the true kingdom, the real kingdom, which Jesus spoke about, is something quite other. So Pilate was right to be puzzled and worried and confused about Jesus. He was able to give the order for the execution of Jesus, but he could not control the sequel. I do wonder what Pilate's reflections were on kingship and authority when he started to hear the rumours of resurrection, and when the early church began to spread around the Mediterranean world. I wonder if Pilate ever discovered the answer to his question, what is truth? We will never know, but the answer is here for us to rejoice in. Alfred knew it and did his best to live by it. In our humbler estate, That's what we are here to do as well.